When rumors of a sequel to Nintendo's hybrid portable gaming console began to emerge, a legion of voices across the internet all cried out in unison saying, "Nintendo, please don't do anything wacky! All we want is a better Switch that can run the old games and play the new ones! Please, just call it like Nintendo Switch 2 or something!" Oh, thank God. Unlike other content creators who were gifted the product by Nintendo or bought it in a timely manner to give you a review ASAP as possible, I instead waited 2 weeks to purchase it because, oh boy, this thing is really expensive. And after spending a little bit of time with the system, its games, its features, and its problems, maybe I can help give you some perspective and help you decide if it's worth picking up right now. Or maybe this is a thinly veiled excuse to talk about a console I just wasted my entire paycheck on so as to not feel so foolish. Hey, by the way guys, eating ice soup every day of the week is an awesome diet! Without further ado, is the Nintendo Switch 2 worth it? So this is it. This is the Switch 2. For size comparison, here is my Switch OLED, but I'll be real, I watched a million size comparison videos before I held it in my hand, and it wasn't until I could actually touch it myself that I could feel the difference. And at first, this thing feels massive. So much so that it gave me a slight cramp in my right hand during portable mode, but that hasn't happened since the first day, so no pain, no gain, am I right? The overall build of it just feels more premium, to a degree where it makes the previous Switch almost feel like this tiny cheap plastic toy. The Joy-Cons are no longer the size of the ants from Ampley, but are now modest and comfortable to hold. And it's things I didn't expect to be impressed by, like the magnet connectivity, which just works and feels so satisfying to click in and out and in and out, and ooh, you want to buy a Switch 2 so bad, ooh. And the magnets also reduce the annoying wobble the OG Switch would have with its rails. But what caught me by surprise was the speaker, which is surprisingly really nice. It's louder and has a more well-rounded sound, which leads to greater immersion. And oh my god, the screen! Like a lot of people, I was really worried about hearing that they were going back to an LCD panel after getting used to the beautiful colors of an OLED. Just, oh my god, it's so good. But so far, I've been pleasantly shocked. It's a really nice screen. The colors look good and the 1080p resolution is really slick, and I genuinely think it looks great.
The screen just isn't particularly good overall.
Huh? But the console is only the thing that gets you inside of itself. Wait, what? I can't think of something better. Let's talk about what it's like when you turn this thing on. When Sony released the PlayStation 5, it felt a little disappointing because it ended up feeling like the PlayStation 4 too. Derogatory. Yet here with the Nintendo Switch 2, complimentary, I think because ultimately that is what we all wanted, it is just really nice to have a better, slicker, and faster Switch. It runs in 4K now, the Wi-Fi has been fixed so games download way faster, there's a mouse feature, the icons now have rounded edges. If we're going based entirely off of vibes, then I'd say this exudes quite pleasant ones. Is that reason enough to drop $700? I don't know, how big of a fan are you of rounded corners? I do agree with people who criticize the lack of themes, especially when previous systems let us get wacky with it. But I do think all the subtle changes make it feel like a more premium experience. Like when you click on all the different icons, they've got these cute sound effects now. The settings go, and the eShop has this cute little Zelda-esque jingle, and the news scroll goes, "The US bombed Iran?" Speaking of the eShop, this shit no longer sucks. Yippee! On the OG Switch, you'd click the icon, wait about 10 minutes for it to load, rethink your entire life choices, and then by the time you were actually in, you'd already decided that it was the right decision to break up with Ellie. But worse than that is that the eShop was riddled with terrible loading and a barrage of slop hentai games. And I don't actually know what hentai is, so if someone could explain that to me in the comments, that would be great, but this landfill of garbage made buying digital games an absolute drag. I'm happy to report that the Switch 2 eShop experience is fixed and greatly improved. It loads in a jiffy, it's responsive, it's easy to keep track of your wishlist and sales, and there's even this recommendation feature which is great. My only concern is, turn your mind back to 2017 and on day 1 of the original Switch, and the eShop had like 4 games and it ran fine. But as the years went on and more garbage was added, it started to chug. So, here's hoping that doesn't happen again. Please. It's not all perfect though. There have been a lot of issues reported about the HDR support, which isn't properly explained or showcased by the system screen itself. I don't really have anything to comment because I don't own a nice enough TV for this feature. I don't even know what HDR stands for. But experts on the topic have issued their frustrations loudly, and I hope Nintendo can fine-tune and adjust based on feedback. One major frustration I have found though was the new virtual game card system. On paper, this idea is awesome. It lets you loan digital games between different consoles you own and even to family connected systems. Unfortunately, the process is kind of clunky. You go into the virtual games card icon, select make all of them a virtual game card, and then at once the Switch 2 goes, let's download every single game right now! And then you have to individually cancel them all one at a time. Like, dudes, stop! But apart from those slight frustrations, I haven't run into any major issues worth complaining about. Except, why can't folders be made on the homepage? That's so stupid.
I literally ran home, I'm sweating up a storm, because it basically adds folders to the Switch.
I think in 2025 there is a valid question to be asked, which is, do I even want a Nintendo Switch? In 2017, a portable console that was powerful enough for big games was a miracle. But nowadays we have the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, and a bunch of alternative products, all with various different goals. The aim of the Nintendo Switch 2 is that it's just trying to be a gaming system. It's not a portable PC for you to be able to customize or a cloud streaming device to play all your favorite games in bed. It's a simple, hybrid, portable Nintendo console. It's going to play all your favorite games and now do it better than before. From the perspective of a parent gifting this to their child, or even a gamer who doesn't want to waste a bunch of time in the settings, it is nice to have this system that can easily and simply play a buttload of games with a buttload of supported controllers, all with the press of a button. And the new power it's packing under the hood will let third parties port their games to the system without having to greatly sacrifice their creative vision. I, for one, am really excited to play games like Final Fantasy VII Remake again, but this time on the train or whatever. And I hope that other big AAA games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or whatever can also make the jump over. And there are things that the Switch does better than any of the other systems that no one talks about. I study Japanese every day, and the Switch is the easiest system for changing languages on. On PS5, a system-wide language change won't necessarily affect the games, with its language still being based on the region you bought it in. And Steam is the Wild West, with some Japanese games not even selling their own language version to you. What? While on the Switch, you just change your language in the settings and automatically every game you own will change to reflect the system settings. And for visiting older games that were region locked upon original release, this simplicity is a godsend. And while I greedily did wish for this option to happen at the user level, it is something I'm grateful for that no one ever really discusses. So thanks, Nintendo. But now we have to talk about the big innovation that Nintendo prided themselves on. The idea is so massive they had to make a dedicated button on the controller for. Something no one has ever even thought of before, except when they did in 2005. Online voice chat. But hold on, let him cook. When GameChat was announced, a lot of people clowned on it, saying, this is just Discord, lol. Yep, that's the point. While they are embarrassingly late to the party, it is nice to have voice chat built into the system level that works this well. It's a far cry from their previous attempt on the Switch 1, oh my god. You just invite a friend and you're in a call, and then you can share your screen, and even though it is at an abysmally low frame rate, it just clicks. I don't know how to explain it.
You see me eating chicken. Wow.
I can't tell you how much I've done this exact same thing on Discord with my friends in the past, but now anyone can do it without the need for a capture card and a fancy setup. It's just a button press away. And the filtering on the mic is insanely impressive. I tested it with a friend and it sounds great, even if you're kind of far away. And then I tested it with me vacuuming my room while talking.
I shall vacuum now. Okay, I'm gonna keep talking. The vacuum is going and I'm talking.
I can't believe that works so well. That's wild. It even allows for camera support, and oh golly, oh gee, I hope the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro is supported. Something I've seen basically no one talk about is that the system is for people of all ages, and I think it's really important for kids to have a safe space online to hang out with their friends. When I was a kid, we had Club Penguin and Mathletics and other dedicated online spaces for children that just don't exist anymore. And I think when you're an adult, you forget sometimes that kids exist online online, and it is not a good thing that children can easily join public Discord channels where they can get groomed, or worse, develop the worst personality of all time.
Shut your trap and slob on my cracker cut.
And look, we were all there. When I was 12, I was befriending 25-year-old lesbians in the Google Plus roleplay chat rooms. But now that I'm nearing 25, I think it's important to recognize that there needs to be an adult-excluded safe space for minors online, and this is exactly that. Let's be real. No one buys a gaming console for the safety of children online, or the voice chat, or even the menus. It's all about the games, baby! And the Switch 2 is really interesting in that regard, because instead of releasing with one killer app, it released with a pretty killer app, some popular third parties, and a bunch of old games via backwards compatibility. So, let's check them all out. I don't know, I didn't pay for this shit. I wasn't particularly excited for Mario Kart World. I thought it looked cool, but that was about it. And that was maybe the perfect level of expectation to have going into it, because this game snuck up on me and ran me over and hit me with a blue shell, and then it turned me into a sexy vampire. Mario Kart World is really fun, and I think it is the perfect next step for the series. The last entry, Mario Kart 8, came out 11 years ago. It was slick and tight, and it really felt like the furthest you could push a strictly arcade racing game. The boosted course pack that added 48 new tracks did help keep the game fresh, except when you had to go to Sydney. Oh, no! But after so many years, I think the developers had an urge to push the series into a new direction, rather than again giving us something safe and predictable. So here with Mario Kart World, they changed a bunch of things up. There are now 24 players, which means there is twice the chaos. Anti-grav is out, as we now have karts that transform into boats and planes. And there's rail grinding and wall riding, and this greater sense of momentum as being hit by an item doesn't stop you dead in your tracks anymore. The art style has been given a lift, leaning more into the stretchy, cartoony aesthetic the series has been embracing over the last couple of years. I especially like how comically violent being struck by lightning is now, as well as the words boom over explosions. And they introduced the biggest game changer to Mario Kart since sliced bread, Breath of the Wild mode. This shit's kind of boring. For the mode that was advertised the most, free roam really left a lot to be desired. While at first there is this great feeling of, I can't believe I'm allowed to do this, as you take a left turn out of a track and onto the open roads, that feeling quickly dissipates and it just doesn't feel like there is much of anything to do. I mean, there are these P-switch challenges scattered about, but they're never really interesting. One of them had me grinding on a rail and occasionally jumping. Well, this is boring.
I think you'll find they're teaching you the game mechanics.
Okay, well, could they have made them fun? I am being a bit harsh on it, but I just think if you're not that into virtual sightseeing or doing these whatever challenges, that free roam just isn't very fun. I do, however, envy the children with their giant imagination who will get to play this and fall into this world in a way that adult brains just can't. I don't know, I just wish there were more secrets to discover, more things to do apart from P-switches and pointlessly collecting coins or finding new outfits, which, by the way, I love. To accommodate for the doubling of players, they needed a bigger roster, and so of course you have the usual gang like Mario, Luigi, and all their friends, but now you just have these bizarre picks like the Piantas, Dry Fishbone, a Goomba, and the cow from Moo Moo Meadows. What the hell, sure. But what's more exciting is that a load of the characters get these unique costumes, and oh my god, this is such a fun part of the game. You drive up to Yoshi's, grab your takeaway from this minimum wage family supporting dinosaur, and before you know it, you'll be dripped out to the max. Mario can finally look cool. Peach can become your annoying friend who just went to Japan and won't shut up about it. And Daisy can... oh my god, I have never been a Daisy head in my life, but this game has made me a convert. I get it now. I get it now. I get it now! Although I do think it is extremely lame only like half the roster gets alternate costumes. Let me put a hat on the cow or something, man. Like, what are we even doing here? But playing dress up is not the whole game. Mario Kart is a racing game, and oh yeah, it's racing time. And because of the open worldness of the game, you have this interconnectedness to the tracks that has never been there before. And so honestly, one of the funnest things about playing this new entry is remembering that a part of the joy of these games is not having decade-old muscle memory built into my hands and discovering these tracks for the very first time. I could play every course in 8 with my eyes closed at this point, so it was a breath of fresh air for the first time in a decade to have to use my crystal critical thinking skills and figure out on the fly how to race down a track. And the courses here are great. You get some new ones which are really fun and impressive, my favorite being Boo Cinema, where you literally go inside a film reel. Oh, it's so cool! But the biggest surprise is with the retro tracks they've brought back that are now entirely reimagined. Some of them sort of resemble their predecessors like Toad Factory, and some resemble them very little like Choco Mountain or Wario Stadium. It's this creative freedom that I never realized would be such a benefit to the game instead of forcing developers to be faithful to a track that looked like this. Ugh, yucky! My only real complaint with the tracks overall is that they're set up very weirdly. In Grand Prix in the previous games, you'd play 4 tracks, do 3 laps in each, move to the next, and blah blah blah, you won, yippee! Or you came 4th, you fucking loser! While in World, the first track will be the usual 3 laps in a row, but then the remaining 3 tracks will be 2 laps of getting there, and then only 1 actual lap at the place. I totally get what they're trying to do here, emphasizing the open worldness, but I kind of don't like it. If I want to do 3 laps of Sky High Sunday, for example, I have to do it individually in the versus mode. I wish that this variation on Grand Prix was a separate mode or a sub-mode under Grand Prix or something, where you select if the races are interconnected or separate.
And Nintendo just did an update the other day where you can't even pick a normal track in online mode? What the fuck?
The build-up of driving to the next race course doesn't ever really enhance the races, except for Rainbow Road, and if you haven't played the game yet, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds right now to skip ahead to the next section because this had my jaw on the floor. It is totally worth it to drive from Peach's castle up to the literal stars as you get to experience what is easily the best Rainbow Road there has ever been. It's a 5-lap gauntlet with varying themes that feels like this big love letter to the entire history of the track, all while looking beautiful and having stunning visual moments, and also giving a big fuck you to Mario Kart 8's boring-ass bland Rainbow Road. No, seriously, your gimmick is anti-gravity. How did you give us a boring space station? What? Now you might think so far that I've been a bit negative on the game, and yeah, I guess, because at this point I was feeling a little bit about it all. That was until I played by far the best game mode of World and maybe the entire series, Knockout Tour. It was advertised and discussed so little before launch when I really think that this is the big draw of the game, way more than the free roam stuff. All 24 players are racing to place 20th or better, and then 16th, then 12th, then 8th, then 4th, then 1st, with the remaining players getting eliminated the further you go. It is the best of World's 24-player chaos and the series' fun arcade racing shenanigans. As you turn every tight corner and barely scrape through the checkpoint, it makes you really appreciate how great the mechanics of this entry are. In Mario Kart 8, even online, I could pretty easily hold first place. Even if I got blue shelled, it wouldn't take me long to get back to the front. But in Mario Kart World, it's a war zone. Being in first no longer makes you feel complacent, but fills you with dread, as you know it will only last so long before you're back in a rat race, being hit by every item under the sun and being squashed, and it is so demoralizing that you can go from first to 24th in 3 seconds. But in turn, you can also live the underdog fantasy by going from 24th to 1st in another 3. It's so chaotic while never feeling unfair like the rubber banding in previous games would. And it makes you really appreciate all the subtle changes they've made, like bullet bills not doing damage, or mushrooms feeling incredibly powerful now, or even insane things like being able to slipstream while using the giant mushroom. Why do they let you do this? Knockout Tour, for my money, is absolutely the reason to get Mario Kart World. It's the most fun I've had with Mario Kart in a long time, and I've been playing both online and with my housemates religiously. Although, if I can make one more slight complaint, I do miss going online and seeing the flag of every player and seeing where in the world they were from. It felt like we were part of something bigger than us, man.
I'm using tilt controls. I do not give a fuck, Bill.
Although, you do still have the fear of connecting to a game and seeing a 12-year-old Japanese kid that will absolutely mock you. Some things never change. Oh, and also the music is really good. Mario Kart World was the only new first-party release for the Switch 2, with Donkey Kong Bonanza coming in July and Metroid Prime 4 coming later out now? Out now? But one of the most interesting things they did was upgrade previous games with these Nintendo Switch 2 editions. And the most heavily talked about were, of course, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. I genuinely thought I'd never talk about these games ever again. I'm sick of talking about these two games. But I was uniquely intrigued by the prospect of them running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second and at a higher resolution. Yes, please? I went into it with this idea that it would completely transform the game and immerse me further and grip me the way it did on day one back in 2017, and I don't know why I thought that. It is just Breath of the Wild again. It has all the same problems it always did, and no increase in frames or pixels can improve that. And so I put it away after just a couple of hours and went, ah, well, it was nice to look at least. And then I picked it back up just for a little bit, and then I picked it up again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and finally I went, oh no, it did hook me. Yes, the game is still Breath of the Wild, but this new frame rate and high resolution really sucks you into this world in a way that you never could be on the Switch 1. For the first time in almost a decade, I was enjoying walking across grassy fields again and climbing up treacherous heights, gliding across canyons, trying to tame a horse, looking at sunsets, collecting items, and being fully immersed into this world. It's hard to explain, but this upgrade feels like it expanded the portal between our world and Hyrule, and with it now being larger, it's easier to completely fall in and lose yourself to the immersion. That's what I'm talking about! It rekindled this feeling I haven't had since it launched in 2017, where I enjoyed the beauty of discovery as I was serenaded by arpeggio notes and the whistling of the wind between leaves. It still is Breath of the Wild, with a narrative that is inconsequential and terrible dungeons and a bunch of small, dumb, creative decisions. But it also makes everything that game did right shine even brighter than it did before. And I am now endlessly envious of the 5 people who have somehow not played this game yet and get to experience it like this for the first time. So this update, which I think is fairly priced to be honest, especially if you have the NSO expansion pass, reshines the beauty of Breath of the Wild in a way that makes it worth revisiting and made me appreciate and love this game in a whole new light. And made me just really hate Tears of the Kingdom even more. I am so sick of talking about how much I don't like this game. Running around in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule again made me even grumpier about the fact that Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule is so expendable. The world is just this big playbox to fly and dive through as quickly as possible. There are no moments in Tears of the Kingdom where you wistfully walk through a grassy canyon to the sound of the wind because the game wants you to be constantly making a big Rube Goldberg torture machine or a car or teleport all over the place and drone strike yourself to the next destination. It is visually impressive to see a game this massive, both horizontally and vertically, run at a silky smooth 60 FPS. And it is nice for the game not to have a heart attack when you use one of its main features. But man, I just can't love this game. A higher resolution does not fix an inconsequential story that is also bad in a world I've already explored with mediocre dungeons and abilities that feel less satisfying to use than its predecessor, and I can't. If anything, this Switch 2 edition is the nail in the coffin for me. Breath of the Wild feels like an adventure through Hyrule. Tears of the Kingdom feels like you loaded up in Gary's Mod and fucked around for a bit. Case closed. With these Nintendo Switch 2 editions, it's not just a resolution and FPS boost though. They've also added this swanky new Zelda Notes feature. Whip out your phone, download the Nintendo Switch app, and there are a wide array of new tools at your disposal when you look down at your second screen and wait.
Did we just
reinvent the Wii U? It is bizarre that there is now a GPS for the two games, but it could come in handy if you're a diehard completionist. And of course, there is the big juicy lore update with Zelda's voice memories. When this was announced, I saw a lot of people were upset that they were locking bits of world building behind a paywall app thing, and now that I've got my hands on it, I don't think you're missing much at all. For some reason, I had the impression that the notes would be like, Link and I had a picnic here, and it made me wonder, do I really have what it takes to be the reincarnation of the goddess and save Hyrule? But they're not that at all. Let's take the Rusted Prison, for example. You walk in, use your GPS to find it, and then Zelda starts speaking through your phone speaker. Oh, wait, you have to turn the ringer on for some reason. Okay.
If the sturdy iron bars are any indication, those who are brought to the lockup must have committed weighty crimes.
Yeah, Zelda, I could have gathered that myself by using my eyeballs and looking around. And seriously, every single voice memory I have found so far is like, this is a cow. One time I ate cheese from this cow. The villagers said it was yummy, and then it was. I love Hyrule. Maybe there are some diamonds in the rough, but personally, it's not something I'm gonna bother with apart from maybe at some point in the future watching a compilation of them all on YouTube. We finally have GameCube games as part of Nintendo Switch Online. Woohoo! Although I am a little disappointed with how few games there are at launch, more will be added over time, so it's okay. We just have to be patient. I have used and loved Dolphin for many years, but I do think it is equally as enjoyable to go into an app and just select a game and it works. No configuration of graphic settings or controllers, just pressing start and playing. And I don't know if this is common knowledge and I was just out of the loop, but you can plug in your GameCube controllers into the Switch and they work perfectly, which is awesome. Now I don't have to pay $90 for a GameCube controller. So how are the games? Well, I think they play great. To me, they look good, they play well, and I especially like how Soul Calibur and F-Zero GX are attuned to use the widescreen mode built into their games. It feels great to have an old retro game in widescreen on a big TV. And it's nice to see Wind Waker finally on the Switch. I know everyone says this, but oh my god, the art style has really held up. With this resolution boost, apart from the UI elements, it's hard to tell visually that this game came out 20-ish years ago. Except for all the stupid gameplay stuff. I would have preferred if it was the HD version on the Switch, which I think is objectively better, but it's still great for people to have the chance to play the game at all. And now I can finally throw away my piece of shit GameCube. And at last, every single mainline Zelda game is available on a Nintendo platform. Except Twilight Princess. Why do you hate me, Nintendo? Ah! Okay, this shit's gone on longer than I wanted it to be, so let's wrap it up. The Switch 2 is very backwards compatible. Before launch, Nintendo released a list of games that were and weren't compatible, and a lot of us started to get a little worried about it, but in practice, it turns out pretty much everything works. Fear can only get you so far. And in a lot of cases, the games run better now. If a game had an uncapped frame rate on Switch 1, that shit is being boosted all the way to a silky smooth 60 FPS. Oh yeah, baby! We even have some rare instances of games that, by accident I guess, were running at 1080p in handheld mode on the Switch 1, despite its screen only being 720p. Which means you get games like Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition with no patches, no touch-ups, no nothing, running at 1080p 60 FPS in handheld, and oh my god, this is a dream! It looks so good! I love this fanfiction Zelda hack and slash game! It's not all perfect though. Well, I'd say anything from Switch 1 being played in docked TV mode is fine. A lot of games do not look great in portable mode. Because most of these games are being rendered at 720p, when being blown up to a 1080p screen, it just looks less than desirable. And then when you have games that weren't even hitting 720p being blown up to the new screen size, oh, forget about it, this looks awful! Your eyes do get used to it, but I don't know, I wish and hope Nintendo would add in a feature or a toggle to trick the game into thinking the console is in dock mode when it's actually handheld. But apart from that, backwards compatibility is always a great feature and something I'm a big fan of, so big ups Nintendo. Thanks. So the burning question, should you get a Nintendo Switch 2 right now? Probably not, unless you absolutely need to play Mario Kart or you're still on the OG model of the Switch 1 with the crusty ass small screen and that terrible battery. It just feels like a better, more premium Switch. A Switch 2, if you will. It is nice to play these new games and have old games ready at the disposal sometimes with enhancements, but I don't think I'm missing out on much at the current moment. This thing is going to be around for at least 5 to 8 years, and once they get a new Zelda, they got a new Mario, some more third-party stuff is on, then yeah, you should absolutely consider getting one. But for now, the previous models I think will suffice. I'm not even going to get rid of my old one because, I don't know, this thing is big and I'm kind of scared of taking it on the train. No one take my Switch 2, please! The gaming industry is different to what it was in 2017. When the original Switch came out, the idea of a hybrid portable gaming system was insane, and a lot of us spent so much of those first weeks giddily taking the console in and out of dock mode. Unlike the Switch 1, or the Wii U, or the 3DS, or the Wii, or the DS, there isn't a big wow factor gimmick this time around. And while there was a slight feeling of disappointment as this fact hit me, I think this is ultimately what we all wanted, and I'm glad Nintendo hit the bullseye. A follow-up console to a successful generation is a curse that has plagued every gaming company, and it's nice to see that Nintendo landed with relatively little wobble. Yeah, the game card key situation isn't ideal, and it sucks that games are now going to be $130, but overall, I am very happy with how it's ended up. And that is my review of the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't usually really talk about stuff that just came out, but I wanted to. If you have a Switch 2, please tell me your thoughts below, and if you don't, get out! If you want to see these videos early, plus get exclusive goodies like a companion video and some other chunky extra bits, please consider becoming a member. It's like Patreon but built right into YouTube. And sorry I disappeared for 6 months, I've been working really hard on a 3+ hour video on Evangelion. Wait, no, don't cut me off, no, I want to talk to everyone!